A royal storm is brewing behind palace walls, and it all began with a child's tale. When Camilla's teenage grandson allegedly bullied Princess Charlotte, it didn't just spark outrage. It triggered Prince William's most direct confrontation yet. Words were said, loyalties were tested, and suddenly, the illusion of family unity crumbled. Catherine was heartbroken. George stepped in to defend his sister. And Queen Camilla? She never saw the backlash coming. What followed wasn't just a family dispute. It was a royal reckoning. Now, insiders say Prince William has drawn a firm line, and Camilla is standing on the wrong side of it. The incident at Windsor Estate. It was supposed to be a cheerful family afternoon. Windsor's private gardens were filled with laughter, children playing, and royals mingling in the sun. But what started as a calm day turned into something far more disturbing. One moment that would shift the entire mood and leave lasting scars. Princess Charlotte had been playing quietly near the fountain with a small plush toy she'd carried from home, a comfort she rarely let go of. But out of nowhere, Camilla's teenage grandson walked up, yanked the toy from her hand, and sneered loud enough for others to hear. "You're just a spoiled royal brat." The words hit like a slap. Charlotte, stunned and heartbroken, froze. Her little eyes welled up before she turned and ran straight into Catherine's arms, tears falling. The air shifted instantly. Laughter stopped. Silence spread like a wave. Prince George, always the protective older brother, reportedly stepped in, placing himself between the boy and Charlotte. Calm but firm, he looked him straight in the eye and said, "Don't talk to her like that." Staff nearby quickly stepped in to defuse the situation, but the tension had already taken root. What should have been a family bonding moment turned ice cold. Charlotte clung to Catherine. George stood by her, arms crossed, refusing to move. The mood had changed, and not just for the children. Behind closed doors, the incident spread quickly among the adults. Some brushed it off as kids being kids. Others weren't so sure. For Catherine and William, this wasn't just a bad day. It was a red flag, and one they could no longer ignore. Catherine's immediate reaction. Catherine didn't raise her voice. She didn't cause a scene, but her reaction said everything. After comforting Charlotte, Catherine gently pulled her children aside and left the activity altogether. She didn't say a word to the others, but her face showed the storm brewing inside. Tears were forming, barely held back. She kept her composure in public, but those close to her noticed the way she clenched her jaw, the way she held Charlotte just a little tighter. Later, once the crowd had thinned, Catherine approached Camilla privately. She was calm but direct. She expressed concern. Not just about that day, but about a pattern. This wasn't the first time Camilla's grandson had caused issues. Catherine explained that Charlotte was hurt and humiliated, and that George had felt the need to step in. She didn't point fingers. She simply asked that the boy be spoken to. But Camilla's response shocked her. With a dismissive shrug, Camilla allegedly replied, "He's just being playful. Charlotte needs to toughen up." That sentence changed everything. Catherine froze. Her eyes went cold. The disappointment, the anger, it all rushed in at once. She didn't argue. She didn't shout. She simply nodded, turned, and walked away. But that night, once back in their private quarters, she told William everything. According to a close aide, Catherine said quietly, "If someone outside the family had said that to Charlotte, we'd be demanding accountability. Why should this be any different?" And that was the moment William made his decision. William's confrontation with Camilla. The next morning, as the sun rose over the palace grounds, Prince William requested a private walk with Camilla. No aides, no interruptions, just the two of them. Camilla didn't expect it. Not from William. Not like this. As they strolled along the gravel path, William spoke first. Calm, controlled, but his words were anything but gentle. "This isn't the first time," he reportedly said, "and it can't happen again." Camilla stopped walking. She was stunned. William had always been polite, formal even, but this wasn't the William she knew. This was a father protecting his own. William continued. He explained how George and Charlotte felt uncomfortable around her grandson. He reminded her that these weren't just any children. They were the future of the monarchy. And if someone couldn't respect that, then maybe they shouldn't be part of these gatherings at all. "If your grandson can't show respect to mine," William told her, directly, then he shouldn't be around them at all. Camilla was speechless. For a moment, she didn't respond. She hadn't seen this coming. She had underestimated just how far William was willing to go to protect his family. Insiders say Camilla's face turned pale. Her lips tightened. But William didn't wait for an answer. He turned and walked back toward the estate, leaving her standing there. That moment marked a shift, a line drawn in the sand. William wasn't just speaking as a father, he was speaking as a future king. Tensions between the households. Behind the grand walls of the palace, tensions that had quietly simmered for years were no longer contained. What once had been whispered behind doors and brushed over in public smiles was now boiling to the surface. And this time, there was no turning back. For years, King Charles had worked tirelessly to merge two very different worlds: the royal bloodline he was born into and the family he had created with Camilla. He believed, perhaps naively, that they could blend, that with time, patience, and shared events, his sons and grandchildren would embrace Camilla's side of the family as their own. There were family barbecues on royal grounds, carefully planned holidays in Balmoral, and birthday parties where cousins from both sides mingled under royal watch. Smiles were exchanged. Photographs were staged. And for a while, the illusion held. But the warmth? It never truly settled. There was always a quiet distance, always a difference in tone, upbringing, and understanding. And William, especially, felt it. He had long held firm to the belief that royal duty requires royal awareness, and that those outside the institution couldn't be expected to grasp what the royal children carried on their shoulders. According to one senior royal staffer, for William, bloodline and behavior go hand in hand. It's not about titles, it's about understanding the legacy. So when Charlotte was humiliated at Windsor, mocked by someone who wasn't even part of the firm, that already shaky bridge between the families didn't just crack, it collapsed. In the days that followed, the shift was impossible to ignore. Prince George, usually composed and cheerful, reportedly asked to stay close to Catherine at events, reluctant to engage with extended relatives. He hovered near Charlotte more often, walking beside her, even standing between her and others when Camilla's family appeared. His protective instincts had kicked in, and they weren't going away. Charlotte, once known for her quiet confidence, had pulled back entirely. She no longer ran to greet familiar faces. She didn't play with other children. She stayed close to her mother, rarely smiling, rarely speaking unless spoken to. The atmosphere at gatherings grew noticeably strained. What had once been semi-cordial became uncomfortable. Palace staff began to murmur. first quietly, then more openly. Some aides avoided placing Camilla's side of the family near the Wales children altogether. Seating charts were changed. Guest lists were trimmed. Lines of loyalty were being redrawn in real time. And Camilla could feel it. She had fought for years to feel accepted by the royal family, not just as Charles's wife, but as someone whose family had a seat at the table. For a while, she thought she'd finally made it. Now, she found herself on the outside once again, not because of a headline, not because of the press, but because of a moment, a look, a toy, a tear, and the silence that followed. William's message couldn't have been clearer. Protect the crown. Protect the children. No exceptions. No excuses. Anne and Sophie take sides. Not everyone in the royal family chose to stay silent. And for once, their quiet words carried more weight than any public statement. In the aftermath of the Windsor incident, when emotions were still raw and loyalties were being tested, two senior royal women made it clear where they stood. And it wasn't with Camilla. Princess Anne, the ever-pragmatic, no-nonsense sister of King Charles, was among the first to speak up behind closed doors. She didn't need to shout. She didn't raise her voice. But her message hit hard. She reportedly told Camilla in a private and unflinching conversation, "This was deeply inappropriate. You may view it as childish teasing, but for an heir to the throne to be humiliated like that, in front of others, is no small matter." Anne reminded her that royal settings demand royal behavior, especially toward the younger heirs. Appearances, discipline, tradition, it all matters, even in moments that seem small. That's how Anne was raised. That's how she raised her own children. And she wasn't about to turn a blind eye to what she viewed as a breach of royal standards. Sophie, Countess of Edinburgh, was even, more direct. Though often quiet and gentle in public, Sophie had always been deeply loyal to Catherine. The two women shared a natural bond, grounded in motherhood, quiet strength, and mutual understanding of life inside the royal bubble. Sophie reportedly told a palace aide Charlotte should never feel intimidated in her own home. That is not the environment we stand for. That is not how our children should grow up. For Catherine, this quiet show of support meant everything. She had kept her composure through it all, the confrontation, the tears, the dismissals. But knowing that Anne and Sophie stood behind her gave her the strength to hold the line. She wasn't alone in this anymore. The silent battle was no longer hers to fight alone. For Camilla, however, it was a different story. These weren't just two women disagreeing with her. They were two senior royals, two influential voices within the family, both publicly respected, both closely connected to the crown. And now, they weren't backing her. Camilla had hoped, perhaps even expected, that the inner circle would close ranks around her, that they would understand her instinct to defend her grandson, that they'd protect the unity of the family at all costs. But that didn't happen. Instead, she found herself more isolated than ever. Inside the palace, a line had been drawn, one that didn't budge, no matter the titles or connections. When it came to William's children, especially Charlotte, there were no blurred lines, no middle ground, only two choices, loyalty or silence. And with Anne and Sophie making their positions crystal clear, Camilla was now standing alone and beginning to realize that in the world of royalty, silence can speak just as loudly as truth. Camilla's defensive response. Camilla had always been cautious with her public image. For years, she walked a tightrope, balancing her place in Charles's heart with her role in a royal family that had never fully embraced her. She smiled at events, offered grandmotherly warmth in interviews, and stayed far from drama. Bit by bit, she rebuilt her reputation. And just when it felt like the public had finally begun to accept her, everything threatened to unravel. The confrontation with William was bad enough, but what came after, that quiet, devastating judgment from Princess Anne and Sophie, cut even deeper. These weren't just royals. They were her peers, and their silence, their soft but pointed support for Catherine, made something snap in Camilla. According to palace insiders, Camilla stormed into a private meeting with Charles, red-faced and trembling with fury. Her voice was sharp, her tone unshakable. "I will not have my grandson painted as a villain in this family." She was proud, she was hurt, and above all, she felt betrayed. Camilla had never imagined William, so proper, so composed, would confront her like that. She expected him to avoid conflict, to keep things diplomatic. But instead, he'd drawn a line and left her standing on the other side. And now she wasn't just being questioned, she was being blamed. In her eyes, this was a family squabble between children, a misunderstanding. She reportedly told Charles they were just playing. Charlotte took it too seriously. Children fight, they get over it. But Charles didn't agree. He had seen the aftershocks for himself. Charlotte's sudden change in demeanor, the whispers among staff, the frigid mood between households. He wasn't just hearing rumors. He was watching the fabric of the family fray in real time. And then he said the words Camilla didn't expect. "You may want to protect him, but I have to protect the future of the crown." It was a quiet but devastating blow. Camilla stared at him, silent, realizing that in this moment, even Charles wasn't in her corner. Her voice dropped. Her expression hardened. She told him the matter had to be buried. There could be no leaks, no tabloid stories, no royal drama. If the public found out her grandson had made Charlotte cry, it wouldn't just be embarrassing, it would be disastrous. She had worked too hard for too long to be seen as a soft, maternal figure, and all of that could be shattered with a single headline. Behind the scenes, the royal press office was quietly briefed. If the story leaked, they were to respond with one line. There was a brief misunderstanding among children during a private family moment. No names, no details, just damage control. But Camilla knew the truth, and it haunted her. For the first time since marrying Charles, she no longer felt secure in her place. The palace walls didn't feel protective anymore. They felt cold, watchful, and dangerously quiet. Because once a child cries in the royal spotlight, the world doesn't forget. Charlotte's emotional withdrawal in the days that have followed the Windsor incident, the fallout wasn't loud. There were no public outbursts, no official statements. But there was one thing everyone began to notice. Princess Charlotte had changed. It didn't take a scandal to see it. All it took was a single moment, caught on camera. At a small charity event in the countryside, one of those quiet appearances where the royals mingle with the public and smile for the press, Charlotte was there, standing beside her mother. But she wasn't the same little girl people had come to admire. She held Catherine's hand with both of hers, clutching it tightly like a child afraid to let go. Her eyes were cast downward, her lips pressed into a quiet frown. She didn't wave to the crowd. She didn't giggle like she usually did. And when Camilla approached briefly, smiling as if nothing had ever happened, Charlotte didn't move. She shifted behind Catherine, avoiding eye contact, her body stiff with discomfort. It was subtle, but in the royal world, subtle speaks volumes. Observers caught it immediately. So did photographers. And behind palace walls, aides began to talk. The bubbly, confident little princess who once danced in the palace halls and smiled at strangers now seemed nervous, withdrawn, guarded. According to one senior aide, she used to run up to rooms without thinking. Now she waits to see who's inside first. She stayed closer to George during events. She sat beside Catherine more often, clinging quietly to her mother's side when unfamiliar faces arrived. And on more than one occasion, George was spotted stepping in front of her, as if shielding her from whatever or whoever might make her uncomfortable. For Catherine, it was more than worrying. It was heartbreaking. She reportedly confided in a longtime staff member, her voice barely above a whisper, "Children remember who made them feel small. So do mothers, and I won't let it happen again." Catherine wasn't the only one taking note. William quietly took action behind the scenes. He rearranged appearances. Events that once included broader extended family now had tighter guest lists. Staff were given new instructions. Only trusted guests, vetted in advance, were allowed near the children. Every interaction was observed. Every moment was managed. It was never announced. There were no memos or briefings. But the change was real. To the public, the full story hadn't come out yet. But those close to the royals didn't need it. They saw what was unfolding in real time. A little girl pulling back from the world, her brother standing guard, and a mother quietly closing the doors around them. For the Wales family, this wasn't just about hurt feelings. It was about trust lost and boundaries newly drawn. Inside the palace, a clear message was taking shape. No one, royal or not, would ever make Charlotte feel unsafe again. Public rumors begin to swirl. And then it leaked. A single photo changed everything. Snapped by a guest at the Windsor gathering and shared anonymously online, it showed Princess Charlotte wiping her tears, clutching her mother's skirt, looking visibly shaken. Within hours, it went viral. Social media exploded. The hashtags told the story without needing details. #ProtectCharlotte, #RoyalKidsMatter, #NotJustPlayful. Suddenly, everyone wanted answers. Speculation spread like wildfire. Rumors pointed to a fight, a bullying incident, something ugly happening behind those perfect palace gates. Some users began referring to Camilla's grandson as the royal brat with protection, demanding he be held accountable. Camilla's team scrambled. A short, carefully worded statement was released within a day. There was a brief misunderstanding among children during a private family moment. All is well between the families. But the public wasn't buying it. Comment sections flooded with disbelief. Royal watchers, especially supporters of Catherine and William, rallied behind the children. They wanted to know who hurt Charlotte. Why wasn't the palace doing more? And most of all, why hadn't Camilla addressed it herself? Suddenly, it wasn't just a family matter. It was a public scandal in the making. Camilla's image as the cozy grandmother, rebuilt carefully over years, was now under fire. And the silence from her side was only making it worse. Within the palace, PR meetings became urgent. Staff were told to watch for leaks. Charles reportedly grew furious, not just at the incident, but at the fact that it was now a national conversation. What had started as a toy being taken away had now turned into something much bigger. A battle of narratives and a potential blow to royal unity. Charles's quiet intervention. King Charles had seen enough. The family tension, the press whirlwind, the emotional toll on Charlotte. He knew it was time to act, not as a grandfather, not even as a husband, but as a monarch. In a private meeting, Charles sat down with William and Camilla. No aides, no distractions, just brutal honesty. He turned first to Camilla and said clearly, "He is your grandson, yes, but George and Charlotte are the future of the crown." Those words hung heavy in the room. Camilla defended her grandson again, saying he didn't mean harm, but Charles cut through it. He pointed to the emotional impact on Charlotte, the online uproar, and the way the children had pulled back in recent events. It wasn't just about one moment, it was about the palace losing control of its own story. He urged Camilla to set firmer boundaries. He reportedly suggested that her grandson should not attend any royal engagements for the time being, especially those involving the Wales children. At first, Camilla resisted, but the pressure was mounting. From the public, from within the family, and now from the king himself. Eventually, and reluctantly, she agreed. It was a quiet decision. No formal announcement, no drama. But those in the palace noticed. Invitations stopped going to certain names, and William made sure of it. Charles hoped it would calm the storm, but some wounds were already too deep, and not everyone was ready to forgive. William's final warning: William had been patient, careful, silent when he needed to be. But after everything, he was done holding back. In a handwritten note passed through official channels, William sent one final message to Camilla. "The crown protects its children. This must not happen again." It was short, but it was final. William also issued a new directive to palace security and staff. All future joint appearances would include screening and approval of non-senior family guests. Every name, every relationship, every intention. From that point on, Camilla's side of the family would no longer have unfiltered access to the royal heirs. And Camilla? She didn't respond. Not publicly, not privately, but inside sources say she felt humiliated, betrayed by the family she'd fought to be part of. Some say she believed Catherine had gone too far. Others say she blamed the internet for turning the incident into a witch hunt. But the truth? The truth was that she never expected William to stand his ground so fiercely, or that Charles would side with the crown over her. As one royal insider put it, this wasn't just about a toy or a taunt. It was about respect, and about who truly belongs in the future of the monarchy. And from now on, the message was crystal clear. When it comes to George and Charlotte, William doesn't compromise. Not for Camilla, not for anyone. As tension simmers and alliances shift, one thing is clear. Prince William won't compromise when it comes to his children. The future of the crown now feels more personal than ever, and Queen Camilla has been left reeling. In this battle of loyalty, respect, and bloodline, silence may no longer be enough.